In section 1.1, we also talk about place values and rounding. So a place value is where the digit is in the number. So each of these numbers is a digit and it holds a certain place in the overall number. So the number that's to the farthest right is our ones place. So we get in this right here, we have 0 ones. If there is a 1 there, we'd have 1 1. And then if we had 2, we'd have 2 ones. The next place over is our tens place, and then our hundreds place, and then next we have our thousands, and then we just repeat the tens and the hundreds. So it'd be 10 thousands and then 100,000s. And then we have our millions, and then 10 millions, 100 millions, and then billions, and then we would just go on and so forth. You're not really going to be dealing with very large numbers. You might deal with to the third or to the fourth place whenever we're adding or subtracting, multiplying or dividing. But learning the different place values and what they're called, learning how to name a number. So every digit in a number has a place, and we just want to make sure that we're aware of what that place value is called. And that comes in handy whenever we're rounding numbers. So rounding numbers is like estimating. So if I have 57 eggs, I wouldn't necessarily say I have 57. I could say, oh, I have about 60, or I have about 5 dozen. So we would say something that's a little bit easier than saying the specific number. So rounding is something that we do every day, and we want to learn the rules of rounding. So basically, when we're rounding a number, if the place value that we're looking at, if the number next to it or to the right of it is between a 0 and a 4, then we're going to round down, which means that the place value is going to stay the same. But if the number that's next to the place value is between 5 and 9, then we're rounding up, which means that the place value that we're looking at, that we're rounding to, will move up to the next number. So let's demonstrate that. And we'll just look at this number that I have right here. So this number is 1,234,567,890. And if I wanted to round to the tens place, if this is the place that we're going to round to, then we look at the number to the right of it. So the number to the right of it, since this is between a 0 and a 4, that means we're going to stay the same. So 0 to 4 means that we stay the same or round down. 5 to 9 means that we round up, or this place value would go up. Okay, so since this number is a 0, then we already have it rounded. It's just going to round to 90. All right, what if we want to round to, say, the nearest thousands? So we want to round to the nearest thousands. So that means we're going to look at the thousands place, which is a 7, but the number next to it is going to be the number that helps us determine whether we're going up or staying the same. So since this is an 8, it falls in the 5 to 9 category. So that means we're going to go up. So we look at this number, and this 7 is now going to become an 8. What happens to everything behind the 8? Well, since we're rounding to that place value, we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, everything after it should become a 0. So all of these will just become a 0. So if I had $7,890, I could just say, oh, I have about $8,000. All right, so let's look at one more. Let's look at the 10 millions place. So I want to round to the nearest 10 millions. That means I find the 10 millions place and I look at the number right next to it to see what's going to happen to my 10 millions place. So since this is a 4 and it lands in the 0 to 4, that means that we're going to round down. This 4 is going to go down to a 0 instead of going up to a 0, which means this 3 stays the same. So we're going to have, I'll put it up here, we're going to have a 3, and then because we're rounding to the nearest 10 millions and that 3 stays the same, everything behind it is going to become a 0. So if I had 34,567,890 pennies, I could say, well, I have about 30 million pennies is what I could say. So this is just a quick review of place values and rounding, which you'll see some homework problems on that in chapter 1.